Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello, and welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show. Hey, as a leader, your job is to move your team forward. You don't have to be the best at everything that everyone on your team knows how to do. The symphony conductor isn't better than the first chair violin at violin. He probably isn't even better than the third chair clarinet. So my guest today has an extensive background in employee benefits and insurance. But first and foremost, he's a businessman and a salesman. And in his current role, he has a team of analysts who work to put together very specific ways that his clients can save money and that he can bring value. So please help me welcome my good friend, Randy Joppie. Randy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, great. So let's jump right into that idea that you're leading a team that has a very different role than you have. You're the sales guy, you're the face of your company out talking with clients, and they're kind of behind the scenes working through very specifics, crunching numbers to help you bring value. Talk to me about how that works.
Well, I tell you that it's become a lot more common after the COVID had hit. In the past, we had a lot of those subject matter experts, is what I reference them as, that were in my office, and I could grab them and we would go do meetings. And with the pandemic that hit, we had to rethink how we do business. And I can't say it didn't come without its challenges. But, now 3 years later, we've mastered it. And I believe that, one, it's an efficient way to do business. We can get more meetings done, as well as my team has resources around them when they're on a meeting that if they were in the meeting, they might not be able to access. So we really found that to be a beneficial side effect that we really didn't even anticipate would happen when we started doing virtual meetings and calling on my team to be in a meeting, but virtually and not necessarily physically at a meeting. And I personally didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And the response to the pandemic has changed so many things. And we've just had to all pivot and figure out how to really make it work. And there's been a lot of advantages to doing that. What you're walking through there with the ability to have a team get more done and be more supportive because they don't have to figure it out in the meeting is just a great example of that. So just to set kind of the context, how big is your team right now that you're working with?
Well, USI Insurance Services is a national brokerage. I think we're number 7 or 8 in the nation. There's about 10,000 of us. I certainly don't work with all of those people, but I've got a team of about 14 different subject matter experts that I can draw upon when I need them to support me. I live in a world where I sell by analogies. People get it. Insurance is legal. Insurance is something that nobody really wants to talk about. Some have called it the necessary evil. I've got buddies that tell me I sell air. But anyway, when it comes to talking about insurance, I need to be the generalist. I'm the quarterback of the team. And my job is to go out and find people that have issues and then bring them solutions. I need to know enough about whether I should hand off the ball, whether I should pass the ball, whether I should run with it for a while for myself. But at the end of the day, my job is to know a little bit about a lot of things. And so, I'm a mile wide and an inch deep in several subjects. I've been doing this almost 30 years. So I'd like to think that I've got skills that I can adapt any situation rather. But at the end of the day, these subject matter experts are around me. Dealing with cost is always an issue with insurance, and I deal specifically in employee benefits. So this is something that's been going up 6 to 15% a year for the last 20 years. It's out of control, and many businesses need very in-depth help with this. Second piece is communication. This is huge, and I've got communications consultants on my team. I can't communicate right now, but these consultants help me with. Just think about it. Everybody used to come to work and you'd have a meeting and you'd explain everything. Now everything is virtual. And I have to give apps on phones that contain all your benefit information, how to access it, how to use it, how to solve a problem. Those are all things that take a tremendous amount of technical expertise, which we certainly have. And the reason that we have it is that there is a communications consultant that works regionally with me, so that she sees, or he sees, a tremendous amount of challenges, and we've solved them all for all of our clients, so that when now it's a situation where we've probably seen it, we've probably solved it a few times, and I'm going to be much more effective as an advisor because I've got this team around me that this is all they do. They're the ones that are an inch wide and a mile deep.
Very good. Absolutely. So you mentioned that the communications coordinator is regional. So are the 14 people that you work with mostly, are they in your local area? Are they maybe even sharing a physical office with you, or are they also virtual and spread all over?
They're virtual and spread all over, with a small contingent of them here with me. Anybody that is client facing is in my office. And we have a three-pronged team. We call them an account manager, an account executive, and then I'm the consultant, right? And the three of us work together. We each have a variety of responsibilities in the life cycle of obtaining a client and retaining our clients, and then servicing them along the way. The rest of my resources, whether it be compliance, we've got attorneys, we've got pharmacists, because pharmacy is a huge issue in the employee benefits business. It's the single fastest growing component of your costs, and we really need to dive in. And I've got PharmDs as well as practicing pharmacists that can help us interpret the drugs and anticipate what the spends might be based on a diagnosis. Those are kind of services that I don't need every day in my office, but with having access to them, it allows me to be completely effective with my clients, because that might be a 2 or 3 week analysis period with a report that comes back. And then I can bring those experts on to interpret the report. And again, I just kind of facilitate a meeting with regard to that.
Okay. So this is going to sound really picky, but I'm trying to get to a place. So of the people that are resources to you, and your 14 people in the office, 14 people that you mostly work with, handful of which are in the office, how many people actually directly report to you, if any?
0.
Okay. And that's, I thought it was going to be a really small number, 0.
Right. Well, and the reason is that we're large enough that there's a team lead on each of these core competencies, right? Yeah. So do they specifically report to me? No, but that account executive and that account manager, I am responsible for making sure that they do their work with the clients that I represent.
Right. Well, that's where I want to go.
So they kind of do report to me, but
and that's exactly where I was going to go with the point, is that you don't have direct positional authority over people, but you're all on the same team, and you're, like you said, the quarterback. You've got to make sure that the clients get results delivered to them. So talk a little bit about how you go about working as a team and directing those different players and calling those different plays, as you used as an analogy. How do you go about doing that when people don't literally report to you? I think that's an interesting challenge for the audience.
You know, it is, but this comes down to relationship, is where I think that in order to function properly, I need to make sure that these people respect me, they understand me, but more importantly, I respect them and I understand them. Because this remote work life that we are all experiencing, we've slowly tried to bring everybody back, but they still don't come back. They'll come back a day or two, but not everybody the same day. So you end up with all these virtual meetings. And I don't try to start every meeting with the guts of the meeting. I need to get a temperature of the people. If they were in the room, I could read their body language. I could have maybe run into them in the hallway earlier in the day, and you get a little feel, hey, we're still on at 2:00, right? Yeah, that's great. And, you know, you can see the stress on their face or not. And the real challenge about this is that the screen pops open and we're live, right? And everybody's busy, especially in the employee benefits business. The fourth quarter is the busiest time of the year. So I really have to be super conscious about reaching out and kind of like pulling the wall down a little bit and just finding out how they're doing today. What's your workload? What's your time frame? And, and then I work very hard to be succinct with agendas, because once the small talk is done, the 2 or 3 minutes at the front end, just kind of to get everybody comfortable, then, let's pop through this. And the preparation is so very important. So we're not solving offline issues when we're using everybody's time.
Yeah, that's so good. I love hearing about how you're building those relationships and that you recognize how important that is, especially in a virtual world, to have a chance to pull together as people before we go into the business aspect. Now, you've been around doing this thing for 30 some years. I'm assuming there's been some mistakes along the way. So I want to dive into that.
No,
yeah, right. I want to think up some stories here, and I want to come back to some mistakes you've made and how you learn how to do some of these things better now by maybe having done them not so well. And we'll talk about that when we come back on the other side of the break. You're here on the Clarity Advisor Show.
Is your business where you want it to be or on track to get there? Clarity Advisors helps business leaders improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success. We specialize in helping you streamline your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Call or text Ken at 616-822-2998 to have a complimentary 12-minute call to see what some clarity could do for you.
All right, we're back on the Clarity Advisor Show talking with Randy Joppie. So Randy, you learned, it sounded like, how to bring people into the meeting as people before you get going in a virtual setting. You've been doing this a long time. Tell us about some things that maybe how you learned to do that by making some mistakes along the way. Tell us some stories about things that you didn't do well as a leader early on.
Well, it might not be just early on, right? I mean, we continue to learn. But I remember I worked at one of the state's largest insurance carriers that has a color in their name, and we'll just leave it at that. But I was a middle manager there, and it was a pressure-packed job, and I had several people that reported to me that were maybe I had a disagreement with, and I'm just trying to be as politically correct as I can. But I kind of, as a younger man, the lesson that I needed to learn was I was a bull in a china shop. I was come to my meeting, do what I ask you to do, bring me results. I don't want excuses kind of guy. And I got in a verbal disagreement with one of the people that reported to me directly. And I kind of like was the dog on the pant leg. I wouldn't let go of the issue. And I thought I was right. She thought she was right. Well, my boss at the time was in the meeting. And it doesn't matter which one of us was right, but the lesson that I learned, and it was a tough one, but I'm so glad I did, is he made this statement to me, and I have never forgot it. And this had to be like 25 years ago. And it was, Randy, you're right, but you're wrong how you are right. And I had to think about that a lot, because I had goals and objectives and things I needed to accomplish. But what I learned that day was I needed those people around me to make my job easier and make me more effective. And if I alienated one of them, the rest of them were like, boy, I don't want to cross him. And so I wasn't getting their full buy-in on projects that I had them working on with me, because they were afraid that I was going to snap like I did on this person. And I don't remember the circumstances, and it really doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, that was a big lesson that I learned.
Oh, that's so good. Thanks for sharing that. I can appreciate you as the bull in the china shop, so to speak,
Right.
Coming in. Look, I need results. Here we go. It's about business, not friendship. Let's get it done.
Right.
You can totally see that, and it's such a temptation, especially for those kind of outgoing personalities and task-oriented behavior styles, that we just want to get stuff done and we push through, and we care about people, but we tend to put people second to the task. and it just
Right.
it doesn't work well. So I'm with you. Hey, we mentioned earlier in the intro that you're also a businessman and a sales guy. You have had a couple of runs running businesses as the owner. Talk to us about what you learned about running a business and the different roles that the team on in your business had to have, and your role as not an expert in any one of those, but as, again, kind of that symphony orchestra conductor who manages all the players on that team and maybe quarterbacks it, if that's an analogy you want to use. But talk to us about the time, not in insurance, but when you were running some other businesses.
Right. About 15 years ago, I had my midlife crisis, right? And so what happened is I sold my insurance practice at the time, and I bought half of a construction company, and it was a residential building and remodeling company. I had built 2 custom homes. I had gone through the process, but I had never ran the process. I was just subject to it, right? But I thought I knew enough to get into this, and boy, was I wrong. Running a insurance agency with administrative people and people that are sitting at desks and they're accessible to me for the 9 or 10 hours I have them at my office, that all changed when I went into construction, because I still could not build a lick, and I didn't ever go get a builder's license. My job was the business guy. I'm going to turn this thing around financially, which we did, but then I'm going to go sell these new jobs, and I'm going to manage the client relationship because my partner was the builder. And then we had 2 crews that were out, and we built 1 or 2 houses a year and remodeled probably another 40. And we did this largely around kitchens and baths. If you run a remodeling company, you're going to do a lot of kitchens and baths. Those are the rooms that everybody uses and everybody wants remodeled. But so it became very evident to me very quickly that many of my skills were transferable. But the fact that my team was out and about and I really only had cell phone connectivity to them, because they aren't making us any money when they're sitting in the office, right? They got to be out on a job site where we're creating billable hours. It was a big transition.
Yeah, for sure. So what did you learn in doing that, and how did you, and maybe you didn't, but how did you try to successfully lead that team? And what lessons did you learn about what worked and what didn't work in trying to, especially that, it's a different version of remote workforce. This is, you're in the office and they're out in the field. So what did you learn through that process about leading teams?
What comes to mind the most is the communication style and the communication pace. I had to back off from my hard driver and turn this into edible pieces of communication for both me and for them. Because a lot of times I didn't know the terminology that was being used, and I pretend I did sometimes. Other times I'd stop them and ask them. But we had to come to this agreement that the lingo that's in the insurance business is very confusing, and the lingo that's in the construction business is very confusing, only for the people that are not in it, right? So there was a learning curve, is what it was. But we had to come together as a team, and they had to acknowledge that because I didn't know something, that didn't mean I was stupid, and vice versa. Okay, so that was the learning curve, and that's what I learned the most is boy, when I'm tackling a new subject and a new topic with a new team, then I need to make sure that we all have a fundamental understanding of the language of the business.
Yeah, that mutual respect, it's so important. Everybody has their area of expertise. You mentioned subject matter experts earlier. Everybody's an expert in something, but none of us are experts in everything. And when we can respect each other to say, I know you know more than I do in this, there's other stuff that I know about. And so I'm not going to pretend I know your stuff, and I'm going to respect you for what you know. And then let's respect each other for what everyone knows. You're going to have to respect me for what I know. And it's different. And let's work together. We've each got our role to play. That's so good. So I'll ask you, you've been, again, doing business and sales and especially insurance for a long time. What is different today that you've noticed and adapted to than, say, 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Oh, I got a quick answer for that. It's technology and law. Okay. I sold my practice in 2010 and came back into the insurance business in 2020. So I had a 10-year nap on insurance, right? Well, deductibles are deductibles. coverage is coverage, but the technology around communication and compliance has changed tremendously. We are completely in a digital service mode now where, again, this is why I can have such a deep team around me and can afford it, frankly, is because we can position these people to serve multiple offices rather than having to have them sit here where they might not, their 45, 50 hours a week isn't billable, quote unquote, right? And so it's one of those things where the technology changed and the mode of operandus for the business changed because I don't need all these people around me. I just need access to them. And Ken, I'll tell you that I had a pretty successful insurance career. Just got burned out on it. Did the construction thing. It worked well. My partner that was the builder had some medical issues. We had to shut it down. So what are you going to do at my age to get back into business? Well, let's go back where we know. But I was highly scrutinized by this company before they brought me back. And the reason was they were worried that I had lost a step, that I was behind. And I tell you what, to their credit, they were probably right. They put me through 16 weeks of school about how to do business with our company when I came aboard. That's more training probably than I had in most of my entire career on an A to Z build, one time, stop what you're doing for 4 months, and we're going to teach you how this business functions again. I'm forever grateful for that, because had they not trusted me and invested in me, then I wouldn't be as effective as I am today by any means.
Wow, that's such a good story. I did not know that. It's really interesting because we've talked before on the show about your skills are waning, and anything that can be taught is going to lose value over time. And so we talk about building teams around core values and shared values and character, not skills, because skills can be taught. And again, they're gonna deteriorate over time. So to recognize, what I'm hearing is that USI recognized that you're the kind of person they want on their team, and they turned around and invested in you with the skills that you would need to build you up to where you need to be from a skill standpoint, but they brought you in because of your experience and your character. So that fits a lot of things that we talk about here and believe in. So that's really good. Now, you mentioned that as an old guy, you had to come back in and might have lost a step. I'm assuming not everybody on your team is a 30-year veteran. So with the different ages and generations of people on your team, I'm curious, what have you learned about working with other people from different backgrounds and specifically different ages?
Venmo. Okay. Had no idea what Venmo was, but I take one of my coworkers to lunch and he's like, well, I really don't have any money. I'm like, it's fine. I'll buy you lunch. It's no big deal. So then he comes back the next day and he stops by. He goes, hey, I want to pay you for lunch. And I'm like, well, okay. And I'm expecting him to pull a 10 out of his wallet or something. He goes, what's your Venmo? And I'm like, not really sure what my Venmo is. And anyway, so that's how this rolls, right?
Oh, that's so good. Yes, I definitely have kids that are big fans of the Venmo and
right.
the transaction that we're going to Venmo on. They have come to find out that dad does not have a Venmo, and so they need to Venmo mom if they're going to do their transaction.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. That's so good. Yeah. And it's the same idea. Like, it's not right or wrong that or don't know Venmo, or that's like that right. generation's thing or not. It's
right.
It's tools that we can use and we can respect each other. And there's been ways to pay each other for lunch before there was Venmo, but now there's Venmo and we've got to adapt. And
I have one. I have one now. I think it's probably only been used that time, but I have one.
Okay, good deal. Well, I'll make sure I keep track of that if we ever go to lunch again. So, and listen, what's your best advice as you step back over a long career and say, especially if you think you're speaking to some young leaders coming up, maybe it's their first time with a team, or maybe they just started with their first team, or maybe they just aspire to have a team. What's some advice that you would give to them, knowing all the things and have learned and, examples and warnings over the last 30 years?
This is coming from the bull in the china shop side, right? I got a lot of stuff done and we were really successful at it. but I left some people in my wake along the way. And that was a mistake. You never know who is going to end up where and when. And I think that if I had to do it all over again, right, which is really where I'm at right now. I mean, that was part of this coming back into this business. If I had to do it over again, how would I do it differently? And that's the number one thing, is that people would describe me as very successful, but very hard driving and a little bit impatient. And I've really worked on my patience and my understanding, trying to lift the team to come with me rather than beat them down because they didn't get something done that I thought they should have done. And that transition maybe comes with age, I don't know. But at the end of the day, there's more than one way to get something done. And it doesn't necessarily have to be my way. And I don't need to focus so much on the process as I do the end result. And if it doesn't happen that day, well, there's another day. We all have deadlines, but at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. People are understanding. And as long as we're accomplishing the goals in a reasonable time frame, generally everything works out.
Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, looking back, it's always clearer what you could have done differently. And I love being able to have guys like you with a ton of experience be able to share that with the up and coming leaders as to, hey, here's some things that didn't go so well. And if I had to do it over again, I might try this differently. And maybe here's some things you can avoid and be even more successful because you didn't have to trial and error your way through everything. Hey, I know you're a learner. What are some things that you're reading or consuming, listening to, whatever, these days? What's some content that you've been taking in?
Jeb Blount is the fanatic prospecting. This has been one of the biggest challenges of me coming back. And I bare my soul here a little bit in that when you have a long career in a business that's successful, work finds you, right? And I was out for 10 years. Everybody I knew has changed jobs, or they have a new Randy, right? I'm no longer needed because I left and was gone for 10 years. And now I'm back and I have to prospect. Well, prospecting is very different now than it was then. I mean, there's still the interpersonal, but again, I'm back. I'm not blaming the pandemic. I have to react to it. And the thing is that seeing me from the chest up is easy to just pretend like you're listening to me, but you might be working on your two other screens and it just appears that you're paying attention. I even had one appointment where I swear that my competition was in the room when I was making a presentation because my prospective client kind of froze their screen for a minute when I asked a question and then came back with a really intelligent answer. And frankly, she wasn't tracking that well for that. So I felt like there was some coaching going on, that never happened before. So it's just interesting, the dynamic that had to change for me to be effective.
So Jeb Blount's a book that you've been plowing through, going back to.
Fanatical prospecting, but it taught me all those. It's teaching me. I'm still reading it, but and I've read it once, and now I'm listening to it as I travel around and do things. Right?
Yeah, it's a great book, and we'll put that in the show notes. I personally can't recommend that one highly enough. It's all Jeb's stuff is great, but Fanatical Prospecting, if you're only going to pick one and reread it and go back to it and highlight and underline, that's the one. It's so good. So Randy, who would be somebody that would reach out to you, and what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, we're on Facebook. This personal, so I don't usually use that. The LinkedIn, you can get a hold of me. There's phone number, email, first dot last name at usi.com. So it's easy. You can find anybody these days, right? And but we're all busy. Everybody's busy. So, having an opportunity to take some time with you, Ken, today and share a little bit of insight, I've really enjoyed the time we spent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my pleasure. I love the stories, and it's always good to hear where people were and how they got to where they are and the lessons learned along the way. I appreciate you sharing all that stuff. We'll put contact information in the show notes so people have that, and we'll people can reach out to you as necessary from there. So with that, that brings us to the end of another Clarity Advisor show. We sure appreciate you being here. Thanks to Randy Joppie, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisor Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.